An entrepreneur is someone who starts their own business, taking on risks in hopes of gaining rewards. The process of creating and managing a business is called entrepreneurship. Some entrepreneurs, which you might have heard of before, are Steve Jobs, Walt Disney, and Oprah Winfrey. But this is just a few of many who have made an impact on the world that we live in today. They all have a certain thing that has made them successful. This is the entrepreneurial mindset. What is that, you might be thinking? That's what we'll figure out through this documentary. My name is Lisa, and in this documentary, I have spoken to entrepreneurs from different industries to see how mindset, creativity, and innovation shape success in entrepreneurship, and how these traits can be developed in young, aspiring entrepreneurs like me. The entrepreneurial mindset can be defined in various ways, and I gained a deeper understanding of it after discussing it with entrepreneurs from different fields. I discovered that their individual experiences have greatly influenced their perspectives on what it means to have an entrepreneurial mindset. By definition, an entrepreneurial mindset means thinking creatively, taking calculated risks, and having the determination to turn ideas into reality. It's about being proactive, adaptable, and focused on continuous growth and learning. For me, the entrepreneurial mindset is all about continuously striving for personal growth and enhancement, both in your skills and mindset. It's about identifying opportunities to make a positive impact on others and the world while staying true to your passions. I encourage you to consider what the entrepreneurial mindset means to you personally. What does it look like in your life and in your aspirations? You don't have to be an entrepreneur to have this type of mindset, but it can help you improve your outlook on life and your goals. First up, we have Tom Belt and Russ Harker talking about how they would define the entrepreneurial mindset.
I would say an entrepreneurial mindset is someone who believes in better, that they see a problem and they think this can be better, and I'm the person who can make it better. And if I'm not the person, I can find someone who will be the person and I can work with them. So it's also being collaborative. So I think it's believing in better, believing in yourself, and kind of getting out there and meeting the right people, collaborating with the right people, and always moving in a forward direction.
You prepare for that stress. So I think the best advice is prepare for stress and allow yourself to get stressed, but have a coping mechanism, have a business plan in place, so you've got everything there, key structure, so you know what you're working to and what your day is going to be and what success will look like. Set yourself a short-term target and say, look, in 3 months' time, I'd like to be able to make a living wage from this.
Yeah.
If you say I want to start earning straight away, then that's going to be, absolutely terminal. And then as you go down, you need to set yourself little targets, little wins, because you'll never see. There's nobody there when you're by yourself. Nobody's going to say, "Well done today. You've done a fantastic job." There's nobody there going, "Oh, what a great day today has been." All you've got is your own mind. And even if you think it's a good day, then you might doubt yourself, but you have to be sure that if you achieve these short-term targets and you know where you're on as a goal. I've got a big spreadsheet of all the placements that I do, and my sort of happy place is look back at my placements and go, well, do you know what? You placed 46 people last year, and you'll think, wow, if I'd done that working, in my last job, I'd have been top, And it's sometimes comparing yourself, which is, it can be good and it can be bad, but I think appreciating where you've come from and where you are now is always a good skill to have, and having that reflection. And I've got friends who go out celebrating, they go for nights out in Leeds. As soon as they'll make a £3,000 placement and go, right, we're off out in Leeds, brilliant, and they'll celebrate. And I think that's important too, because my celebrating is maybe a beer on a sort of Sunday afternoon, maybe maybe going to a football match on a Saturday or something like that. But I think it's important to have a little celebration, because if you're just completely doing that forever, you'll never see any reward. And that's another thing too. If you're just giving all your money you earn to, let's say, your family, you know, but you need to have a little bit of a, you know what, little treat for me, maybe. And that's like just it. So yeah, that's all right.
Creativity is the use of imagination or original ideas to create something. In relation to entrepreneurship, it is to find solutions to problems by thinking of new ideas, developing sustainable business models, identifying a gap in the market, or creating a product. All great entrepreneurs are creative, but not every creative individual is an entrepreneur. This means that while all successful entrepreneurs need to be creative, not every creative person chooses or is able to start and run a business. An entrepreneur may not be the originator of the idea, but that individual's creativity propels them to refine, improve, and create that initial idea into reality. A creative person cannot suppress their flow of ideas. Compared to an entrepreneur, they are compelled to turn a great idea into a viable business venture. Not every creative idea is a good business venture. Entrepreneurs need to be able to distinguish whether or not their idea is viable in the long run. Does it meet the needs of customers? Is it profitable? Or what the costs of raw materials are? I know some of you watching this documentary may think you are not creative, but creativity is a skill that can be developed. It's not something you are born with. The way we can become more creative is to collaborate with others, experiment, question assumptions, get comfortable with failing, reflect, and let your mind wander. There are many other ways to develop this skill, but one place you can start is by changing your point of view. Instead of thinking there's just one solution, think of alternative ways to tackle the problem. Be more broad and lateral in your thinking, which means approaching problems in a creative, unconventional manner. Challenge yourself. To start you off, I challenge you to list as many uses as you can for a clothing hanger, except hanging clothes. To share their views on how creativity is used in their business and how they stay inspired, we have Sam Teal and Emma Beale.
Ooh. Stay inspired. I think I'm just focused on the end goal. I think there's two things you've got to do. You can't really click pause and celebrate your wins too much, because that's not the end goal. To me, is an office in New York City and an office in Australia. Until that day comes, I'm never going to be happy. But I think there's a balance between doing something good, having a few seconds of going, you know what, I'm happy with that, we've smashed it, but then focusing straight back on the future, and also like appreciating the steps that you're taking. Whenever you do anything in life, it is like moving a mountain. You can't just move a mountain all at once, but you can start moving a pebble at a time or a stone at a time. And that is literally what going to business is like. Everything you're doing, the stones get bigger and bigger as like the time goes on, but all you're doing is slowly kind of moving. It's all a little piece of the puzzle. So I think staying inspired is keeping really close to your heart the reason why you're doing something, and that for me is to prove the world. I think it's to prove that young people can do amazing things. I think it's to change the world with video content, which is, if you can move somebody, if you can make someone cry about something and change the way they think about something, that is the start of changing the world. So yeah, I think as long as those are close to your heart and you keep that in your brain all the time, you can keep inspired. Yeah. Creative thinking sharp. I think you've just got to really kind of immerse yourself in the current trends and current topics. So you can't. I'm always on TikTok. I'm always on YouTube, Instagram. I'm just looking at kind of what videos are doing well and kind of taking the temperature of the current audience. You can find out on social media very easily the current feeling of most people in the world. And if they're your target market, probably a lot of other people feel the same way. So if you kind of make something that fits for them, there's probably a million other people that will also fit for too. So yeah, I think it's just immersing yourself and also in making sure you enjoy what you do. Like, I don't want to go to the cinema every single week so I get bored. So I make sure I go every few months. And I'm so excited for it. I leave feeling so inspired. And yeah, that's kind of how I would answer that question.
Okay, so crafting compelling bids relies upon them being bespoke. They must be unique and they must stand out and they must communicate the voice of the business. Now, a lot has changed in the bid writing world since February with the new Procurement Act 2023. A little concern of mine is AI generated content. I do see the value in AI, computer learning tools and AI for many businesses. It's a game changer and it's essential. It's a vital part of their business. But for a bid writer, it presents quite a lot of problems, such as, you can end up with very generic content that's quite verbose. And what I mean by verbose, meaning using too many words than necessary. AI loves to throw lots of adjectives at you when one good one will do. So I have found that a lot of clients are coming to me for bid advice and then saying in the next breath, well, I could just use, AI to write it. And I'm kind of like, okay, what you've got to remember is you're only as good as the person behind the AI prompts or your product is or your piece of writing. AI content within bid tends to have a very steady tone, repetitive, structured. It's very generic, formulaic. There's lots of words that are identifiers of AI content. Leverage, for example. I used to use loving that word. I used to use, sorry, I can't even words out. I used to love using that word, leverage, but now it seems to appear in every AI sort of piece of work I see. So that's kind of, and let's embrace and things like that. So there tends to be some real sort of indicators. So that does seem to be sort of diluting, I suppose, the creativity element. Each bid has to be unique, okay? And like I said, it has to really communicate the heart of the business, especially if I'm working on a health and social care bid, where that is really integral because it's fundamental to the nature of the sector.
Yeah. Risk is an essential aspect of entrepreneurship. It drives innovation, enables you to learn, and can lead to opportunities and success. When you start a business, you take control of your future, whether it turns out positively or negatively. This journey is filled with uncertainties regarding your financial position, maintaining demand for your goods or services, competing with competitors, and ultimately surviving as a business. We encounter risks every day, whether that is crossing the road, driving a car, or cooking on a stove. Some risks can lead to high reward and some in failure, but failure is a crucial step in the ladder of success. One thing that prevents a lot of people from stepping outside of their comfort zone and taking that risk of doing something new is the fear of failure. This fear stops us as people from unlocking our true potential, finding who we are, and stops us from pursuing new opportunities. Even though some risks don't lead to good things, they do provide you with valuable lessons that you can learn from to gain experience and knowledge to become stronger and grow as an individual. A quote I learned is, you either let failure teach you or beat you. Even if you do fail, you have the knowledge and experience to try again. You have to have resilience and perseverance to get back up again, even though you may fall down. Innovation is the introduction of something new. If we really think about it, it's about recycling and improving, taking something and making it better in a different way. For example, the development of the Apple iPhone or the internet. These products and services have greatly impacted the world we live in today. Risks allow entrepreneurs to think outside the box, to create things that are unique to the market and help them identify business opportunities. When I say taking risks, I don't mean jumping into things without thinking about it. You have to take a calculated risk, understanding the potential drawbacks and weighing them against the benefits, then assessing the likelihood of those benefits. Next we have Russ Harker and Tom Belt to tell us their view on risk and innovation.
So risk is a bit of a funny word really, because I think immediately we think, oh, risk is bad. But I think it's just a matter of changing your perspective around the term. So I think nothing is a risk if you can take some learnings from it. So there's no such thing as failure. There's winning or learning, and therefore you stop thinking about things in a negative context and thinking about it as a risk, and rather, you know what, if I go out and do this thing, it might not work out in the way that I expect, but at least I can take something from it. I can pivot in a different direction, or you know what, it might actually work out better than I ever imagined. So I think it's just thinking about it in those terms rather than necessarily this is a risk.
It's to start my own business and fear of failure. I think if you've got any fears of failure at all in any way, shape or form, then you're not trying hard enough, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is, if you've considered what you want to do and you've got a passion for it, and you think, you know what, I'm good at this, which many years in recruitment taught me that I am, pretty good at what I do, and I know my markets and things. It's if you try and fail, then that's okay, no problem. Everyone can do that. But if you've not tried hard enough. A lot of people try things and fail, and it's fine. Not to be scared of that. It's to learn. And if I opened up an ice cream van shop tomorrow, and then decided to sell ice creams, and I tried it for a week, and it didn't work out, and I let it go after a week, that'd be a bad business decision to do that. And that's me not thinking about it or trying hard enough with my research and planning properly. Equally, I think you need to have a bit of courage to take a plunge. And I think if you know it's something that you feel is going to be a good business, not just something that you enjoy, but there's money to be made in that business, and you can make a living from that business, then I think you need to speak to people that are very, very well, knowledgeable in the industry. I think you can't just sort of jump out there and go, right, I'm going to do it. You have a gut feeling, and I think if you've got a gut feeling, that gut feeling will drive you.
The entrepreneurial journey is not just about the development of your business. It's about your growth as an individual, whether that is physically, mentally, or emotionally. It's about the skills you have developed through all the challenges and obstacles on your entrepreneurial journey. It is a hard journey to go on, filled with uncertainty, hardships, and patience. But this ultimately leads you to success through all the failure. You just have to keep going no matter what adversities you may face. To share their own entrepreneurial journey, we have Scott P. Ellum.
How to start? So, I worked in this industry for somebody else. I left university, and this was the first industry I went into. And I went into the industry purposely because I always wanted to ensure I was in an industry where if I had the opportunity to set a business up by myself and grow a business, I would be able to do that. So it's got quite a low barrier to entry, if you like. You don't need a lot of equipment. You don't need a lot of equipment. You don't need an office space to do this. You just need, at the time, you just needed a phone and the internet and the skills. Now you need a lot more in terms of platforms and software and things that can give you an edge, if you like, over competitors, and it's a very competitive industry. But I chose to go into it leaving university because it looked fun, and I was probably aware that I had an ability when it came to sales. So I spent some time working for someone else in my early career, and I had a client who really liked me and wanted me to work within their business, doing the same thing, but also approaching businesses and buying businesses for his company. It was quite a large company, and I joined them. So I had a brief stint outside of the industry where I realised, and I came to the realisation that I wanted to set up my own business at the time. So I had a conversation with that client or employer, at the time. I had a conversation with him and said, look, I'd like to start doing this, and came up with a really good deal that allowed me to set a business up while still being paid my basic salary and share some of the revenue with them early on, but own the business and be there to work for them when they needed me, because I had a bit of spare capacity at the time. I did that for a few months, and then I decided to let them know that I wanted to go 100% into building this business. and they stayed a client quite a while. They no longer own their business, but they're still a good friend. So that's how I started.
The traits and skills needed for entrepreneurship from the interviews I have conducted are communication, resilience, creativity, problem solving, and being adaptable. In business, needs and wants are constantly changing. You have to be self-motivated to continuously pick yourself up, even if life knocks you down. Communication is probably the most important. How you talk to your clients or investors, and how you lead your team through effective communication to execute your vision that you have for your business. I also learned that being able to pick yourself up even when you fail from taking those hard risks, because not every risk will have a reward, and you may fail. Not everyone around you will support you when you start or be there to hold your hand every step of the way. You have to have the mental fortitude to keep going through all those setbacks. These skills and traits can be developed and practiced. Some of these skills come from experience. Nurturing and developing these skills are a crucial step to cultivating the entrepreneurial mindset. To share what skills and traits they deem are important to entrepreneurship, we have the next two speakers.
I think you've got to be really good with uncertainty, because there's some days which is a little bit nuts. You've got to be really good at always being positive no matter the situation. I'm a very positive person, and I try and push that onto the team, and I try and make sure that even on days where we get a bad email or it feels everything's on top of us a little bit, that we keep that positive thing forward. I think you've got to be really driven, and I think you've got to really have a vision of what you want the future to look like, and every single day you're working towards that. And that's exactly what we do. And you've got to be all right with risk. Like I've said, uncertainty and risk is, some people just hate it and they're like, what are you doing? But I love it, and I love when we're doing something a little bit. I love when my adrenaline spikes. I'm like, oh my god, we've done it! Like, I love it. So yeah, and I think you got to be a nice person as well, and I think you got to be really good at being able to talk to people. You've got to be able to explain the vision to the team, but then explain how you can impact a client, or that sort of thing. I think if you've got all them, you're absolutely fine. And actually, the last thing, which is the most important thing, is just self-belief. You got to believe in yourself far too much, to the point that if people tell you no, you just say, "That's not today." I remember when I left school, I got a message off a friend saying, "I'm worried about you. Like, why are you not going to college?" And I was like, "You knobhead." I was like, I'm like, how can you not believe in me? Like, are you all right? I didn't take it as like, oh, I might have a point. I was like, how can you not believe in me? And then I just used that as kind of drive and belief to try and prove him wrong. And then here where we are now. That's what I'd say to that.
Are there
Qualities, traits, and habits that I think are essential to entrepreneurship. Absolute determination.
Yeah.
Commitment, sacrifice, confidence, regardless of your ability, regardless of your intelligence. If you don't have those core characteristics, then the reality is you're probably not going to enjoy it long term, or being harsher, make it long term and make it viable for you, and whatever you want to do in the future, whatever your aspirations are. I suppose outside of that, I think integrity, tenacity, and resilience. And by integrity, I probably mean doing what you ought to do, not what you want to do. Doing the right thing to get the right result. And that might sound really nice, but it's not always nice.
To get there, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not always pleasant either. So if you've got a client who wants to get a certain result and you're having a conversation with them, that means having a difficult conversation with them. And sometimes telling them stuff they don't want to hear in a nice enough way that they understand it and they get to the result that they want because it's the best for them in the long term.
Yeah.
But it might hurt their feelings in the conversation. And it's the same when it comes to building a business as well. When you're employing people, you have to learn to be able to give people tough love because you want the best for them over the long term, but you need to have a conversation in the short term that might not necessarily be welcome from them. So my advice is, and on traits and habits is you have to build them quite early on. So it's probably nice to practice with your friends or whatever it might be. And then two elements that might not be traits or habits there would be, I think sometimes people say these are natural abilities, but I don't think they are. I think they're a product of your environment. But sales ability and negotiating ability, I think you can train them, I think you can study them, and I think you can practice them and they get better. But if you're very good at sales and if you're very good at negotiating, then you will succeed in any area of your career, whether that is entrepreneurial or whether that's working in a big business. For example, if you're an accountant, you can also sell and influence the outcome and get the best outcome, and you can negotiate well. You're going to become the chief financial officer, and progress through your career. So they're the two skills I would say people should focus on working on, and traits and habits are probably tougher to learn.
Success is something that can differ for each individual, whether that is being rich, having a family, or academically. Success is an accomplishment of an aim or a purpose. After talking to an entrepreneur, I bought the book The Gift of Influence by Tommy Spalding, and I started to read it. I realised that in today's society, people now prioritise what we achieve as people, and that's what determines success. But through reading this book, The Gift of Influence reminds us that true fulfillment comes not from what we achieve for ourselves, but from the difference we make in the lives of others. That for me is true success. I feel as an entrepreneur, finding a way that solves a problem and helps people, making a positive impact is true success. To share what defines success, we have our next speakers.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And I think success is a funny one because everybody not only decides which mountain to climb, they decide the altitude at the mountain. So you can say, oh, $1 million revenue business is hugely successful, whereas someone else may think $1 billion business is hugely successful. And I think since I've started, I think that it's easy to fall into the traps of financial reward, and that your business is only as successful as the amount of money that it generates. Which obviously is still a primary focus, but I think being an entrepreneur as well, you're able to be the master of your own destiny. You're able to control your own time and where you put your energy and your effort into. And I think having that ability has been a huge aspect of what I would deem as success.
I think the definition of success is all about resilience, your ability to be adaptable, attention to detail, and strong communication skills. And these are all things that really sort of resonate and come through with bid writing. You know, if you come up against an obstacle, you have to be resilient. Not every client's going to be the easiest to work with. You have to be adaptable, okay? This idea of problem solving and helping the client problem solve. Because a lot of clients come to me and they've never bid for anything before in their life, so it's a real alien world to them. We often say that bid writing is a dark art, and it's, something, I don't think you don't ever grow up wanting to be a bid writer. I certainly didn't. I didn't even know what a bid writer was when I was doing my degree. A lot of children grow up wanting to be a vet or a doctor or a nurse, and I get that. But a bid writer, wow, that was circumstantial, it really was. Yeah.
The key takeaways from this documentary is that creativity is a skill that can be developed and nurtured. Everyone has the capacity for creativity and the ability to find solutions. Innovation, on the other hand, is something you constantly improve and reinvent. It's important to keep returning back to the drawing board to discover new ways to enhance the experience of your product or service for consumers. One of the key skills I've learned from speaking with entrepreneurs is the importance of communication. There are countless of resources and videos available to you to help refine your speaking skills. How you communicate your vision to your team and how you present yourself and your beliefs to others can significantly enhance your personal brand. Remember to just ask. As Sam Teal wisely said, if you don't ask, you don't get. As young aspiring entrepreneurs, we can leverage our age to learn from those who are older and wiser. Seek out good mentors and don't hesitate to ask what might seem like a stupid question, because these entrepreneurs have been in your shoes before. Personally, I give myself 20 seconds of courage to take that first step. Once I've started, even if fear creeps in, I find it hard to stop. Lastly, embracing the entrepreneurial mindset means continually improving yourself and your skills, whether that involves deepening your knowledge on a topic or maturing emotionally. It's about strengthening your mental fortitude and being resilient and consistent in all that you do. To conclude, whether you are thinking of launching your own small business or just thinking up business ideas, cultivating this mindset is one step closer to becoming an entrepreneur. I want to thank you all for listening to my documentary, and remember to take one step at a time, be consistent, and never, ever give up.
If you don't ask, you don't get.